What's up, everyone? I'm CO Connolly, and today, since Halloween was just last week, I'm going to talk about what my son used to do with all of his Halloween candy. I always thought it was so funny. Come on, go ahead. That he never really ate candy. It was never really a thing for him. And even when he would eat like apples and stuff like that, he wanted to dip them in ranch because he said apples were too sweet, which is really funny, right? So he'd never really been a candy person. And I remember when he was 2, I always had gummy bears, like 2-pound bags of gummy bears, right? I always had them whenever he was little. And he would ask if he could have some. I'd give him the entire bag, full or not, I'd give him the entire bag. He would take a handful out, he'd eat like 5 or 6, and he would bring it back to me, right? And I always thought it was funny when people would tell me, they're like, you're just going to give him the whole bag? And I'm like, he'll bring it right back. He doesn't really eat sweets. And I attribute that to, okay, so when I was in high school, I took parent-child development. And the teacher had actually said to only feed babies like vegetables and meats in their baby food until they're a year old, and then let them have their cake, right? So for his first year, he got formula, regular rice cereal, peas, green beans, the veal baby food, which, by the way, I'm going to tell you right now, the jarred pureed meat does not smell good at all. And don't lick it off your hand because you're too tired to think and you accidentally drip some. Never do that. Including baby formula. Done that too. And don't answer the phone if you're half asleep attempting to, you'll order stuff and not realize it. Anyway, trying to take that again. Anyway, so I only fed him in the baby food was veggies and meats. That's all I did. So by the time he was a year old, when he got his first cake, he didn't eat a whole lot of it. And I was like, cool, great. And we continued that through his, second year. So whenever he would come over and he'd be like, ooh, can I have some of that candy? I'm like, yeah, okay. So I would give him the whole bag because I knew he wouldn't eat it all. He eats his apples with ranch. He's got to tone it down. And he's always been that way. He was 11, 14. We'd go to Jason's Deli and he's like, I just want the salad bar. The salad bar? Like, what child chooses the salad bar, right? So that's what he's always done. Great, perfect. So whenever he would go trick-or-treating, he always wanted to hit every house in the neighborhood because he wanted to have a bunch of candy, especially in junior high. He did this a lot in junior high, where he really wanted to have a ton of candy. And at first I could never figure out what was going on because he would have all this candy and day after day it would go down. And I'm like, he's not eating this. I know he's not eating this because he doesn't. So I had to ask him one time, I said, what are you doing with all this candy? I know you're not eating it. And he says, no, he goes, I have friends at school who aren't allowed to celebrate Halloween because their parents come from a country where Halloween is not celebrated. So they don't celebrate Halloween. So I take them candy every day. So they have a little bit. And I was like, that's where all our Ziploc baggies are going. He's getting these little Ziploc baggies. He's stuffing them with candy for these friends that don't get Halloween. So they don't get to go trick-or-treating. So they don't get their own candy. And he's literally taking them like their own little trick-or-treat bags. And it was just the cutest thing ever. I was like, oh. He's so sweet. Yeah, he doesn't really eat candy. It's just a thing he's never really done. He's never really cared for sweets. Even now, he's 25. Even now, he would rather go for the salad bar. Whatever. He likes to cook, so that's a good thing. But he doesn't really go for sweets. And he's never really been a cereal type of kid, which really sucks, by the way, because having to make, pancakes or waffles or eggs or, something every morning. It's like, dude, can you just have cereal? No, because he doesn't like the sugar. It's a lot of sugar. And that's fine. That's great because no artificial colors, no artificial flavors, no artificial sugars. Yeah, that was me with my son while he was growing up. Nothing could have artificial flavors, colors, sugars, any of that. And, I mean, and his teachers would always complain, oh, he jiggles too much whenever he's sitting at a desk. I jiggle too much when I'm sitting for long periods of time. I'm sorry, you're expecting these small children who all, by the way, all of them have excess energy that they need to let out. And sometimes that's just how it works. Well, let him stand up in the back of the classroom. I got several teachers telling me, oh, I can't do that. And I've got other teachers that are going, that's perfect, we'll do that. And him standing in the back of the classroom did not bother any of them, but the ones who were like, I can't do that, that's distracting. Well, I'm going to assume that you have ADHD, and him sitting there jiggling with his ADHD is apparently distracting you. So there you go. It's an inherited trait, which, by the way, my mom believes that my dad's the one who gave it to me, but I have seen some ADHD in her in small ways, but I don't know if that's just something that is worked up as she gets older, like it just kind of seems like it, or if, I don't know. I'm willing to guarantee from my dad, because my dad sits the same way I do, where he's constantly jiggling. His legs got to keep moving. He's got to keep bouncing. He barely ever sleeps, things like that. So I know that my dad's got it. I know I've got it. I was diagnosed at 8 that I had ADHD. Of course, even that was back in the day when all the teachers wanted everybody to have ADHD and here, medicate, whatever. But I have since been also reevaluated, and yeah, it's ADHD. My son, on the other hand, was never actually formally diagnosed, because I was like, I'm not medicating him. Forget it. We're not going to go through this. You can just, no. I don't care. I told his doctor, I said, this is what his teachers believe. His doctor was completely against medicating any children. So if there was anything that we could do naturally, so that's where no artificial colors, no artificial flavors, no artificial sugars. That's where that came in. It's a natural way to kind of suppress a lot of the ADHD because of the way that it enters your body and affects the brain and things like that. It actually causes the excess, So anyway, I know that medications work for some people. I know they really do. For me, my mom did not like it when I took the medications, but that was back when Ritalin was handed out, like, Pez candy. So I had Ritalin. All it did was cause me to, whenever I was on it, become violently angry, and it was not a good thing. So, or it was either one or the other. I was either a complete zombie and did absolutely nothing, and she said I wasn't any fun, or I was completely violently angry and it was not okay. So I just stopped taking it. And what I did was I actually figured out a way to control it myself so that everything is, I have a notebook. I have a literal notebook where I sit down and I write step by step everything that I need to do in a certain way. And I pick steps that I want to go through. And then once I do those things, like cleaning out my office, I go step by step in cleaning out my office. Do I get the entire thing done? No, because once I complete some of those steps, I immediately go back and reevaluate everything that still needs to be done and write it down in a different step-by-step list. I figured out what works for me. I'm very organized. Everything has a place and it needs to stay in that place, because if it is moved, I automatically have no idea where it's at. So that's how that works. But I figured it out. Anyway, my son used to do trick-or-treating for all of his friends. And 95% of his candy that was ever given out for Halloween that he went door to door to get was given to other children at school. What was that? He would even give it to other kids too that just wanted extra because they weren't able to go for very long. Oh, I only got this much and blah, blah, blah. All right, I'll bring you some tomorrow. He never really cared. It wasn't really a thing that he really cared about. He never really cared about the candy. He always took out the ones that he wanted to keep. And that's how that worked. The one issue that I ever had with him was him taking my little leftover containers into his bedroom. He wanted to eat food instead of candy. That's just how he's always been. Me, on the other hand, I have a weird thing about, I always had this thing about gummy candies. I always wanted to eat a bunch of gummy candies. And I used to keep them in my bag. Starburst was the worst one. I learned the hard way, never keep Starburst in your purse during the summer because it will melt no matter what. Doesn't matter. It'll melt and it gets everywhere and it's gross. What are you doing? Okay. I was just trying to figure out. So we bought these snakes to try to keep her from getting onto things, and now she just chews on them instead because, you know, predators, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so I've always had candy. It's just a thing. But he never really cared for it. I'm like a giant child when it comes to candy. Now, as the years go on, I eat less and less sugar, so the candy is not always on my mind. But if my husband has like a bag of some gummies or something like that, and he asks me if I want some of the gummy candy, I'm not going to say no. But I always tell him, you let me know when you're done with that bag, because there is no way I can stop myself from eating the rest of what's left in that bag. And I am serious, because it has happened every time. I will gobble all the candy down. As long as I don't care for chocolate. Here's the two things that I don't care for. I don't like chocolate. I don't like bacon. So there you go. I also won't eat candy corn, but ew, who does? Anyway, anywho, so yeah, that's just how that works out. You know, I was glad that he was never a kid who wanted to eat a lot of sweets, because I never had to worry about, okay, that's enough sugar. You don't need any more of that today. No, he knew how to regulate himself, because he was never really into sweets. So if someone asked if he wanted a cookie or something like that, 9 times out of 10, he's going to say no. He doesn't really want a cookie. Do you want some of this cake? 9 times out of 10, he's going to say no. But, you know, that's just how he is. And he's always been that way. I've never really been a cake person anyway. And the only cookies I ever cared to eat was when my mom used to make the pumpkin cookies that she's made every year. I can't eat them now because, you know, gluten all of a sudden apparently is like a horrible thing. Yeah, I developed an allergy to gluten. Yay for that. Started out as a rash. Now it just makes my throat swell up. So it's not a good thing. I mean, I have to, yeah. So anywho, that's it. Yeah, my son liked to go trick-or-treating for his friends and then bring them like little treat bags every day. That was mostly junior high. So it was cute. He used to always, any of the neighbors that he knew, like the grown-up neighbors that didn't have kids, sometimes he'd go over to their houses too. And he would be like, do you have any extra candy? And he would tell them what he was doing. And sometimes he'd get that. And I'm going, would you stop bringing extra candy home? We have enough bags that you can just take that. So anyway, yeah, that's it. That's all I got to say. Happy Halloween last week. So anyway, whatever, like, comment, share, subscribe, or don't. I don't give a shit. Do whatever the fuck you want. I'm just here rambling, talking about bullshit. Okay. That's it. Okay, bye.